The massive chamber of Nexus Prime buzzed with the voices of 1,000 different species. Admiral Zethkar stood at the center podium, his scaled hands gripping the edges as he addressed the Galactic Council. His yellow eyes swept across the assembled delegates, each representing civilizations that had ruled the stars for thousands of years. Honored members of the Council, Zethkar began, his voice carrying the authority of the Hegemony Alliance. We face a new problem in the Outer Rim territories. A young species calling themselves humans has begun expanding into sectors that belong to established powers. Murmurs filled the chamber. The Veltar delegation, tall beings with silver skin and black eyes, leaned forward with interest. Their leader, Commander Silthara, tapped her long fingers against her seat. The humans had been noticed, but barely. They were new to space travel, having only discovered faster-than-light technology 50 years ago. Commander Jake Morrison sat in the small human section, watching the alien faces around him. He was a tall man with graying hair and steady blue eyes. Next to him, Dr. Lisa Park adjusted her glasses nervously. She had spent years studying alien cultures, but being surrounded by hundreds of them still felt overwhelming. These humans, Zethkar continued, have established colonies in 12 systems without proper authorization from the Council. They ignore our borders and refuse to acknowledge the authority of elder species. Their technology is primitive, their ships are crude, yet they act as if they belong among us. A ripple of laughter went through the chamber. The idea that such a young species would dare challenge beings who had mastered space travel before humans had invented the wheel seemed absurd. Captain Ryan Bell, sitting behind Morrison, whispered to Dr. Park. "They think we're jokes." Park nodded, her brown eyes worried. That might be a problem for them, not us. Zethkar activated a holographic display showing human ships. They looked bulky and awkward compared to the sleek vessels of other species. Look at their vessels. No grace, no elegance. They build their ships like flying metal boxes. Their weapons are crude projectile systems and basic energy weapons. They have no understanding of proper warfare. The Veltar delegation stood as one. Silthara stepped forward, her movements fluid and precise. "Honored Admiral, the Veltar Confederacy volunteers to handle this situation. We have dealt with upstart species before. A quick demonstration of superior force should bring them into line." More laughter filled the chamber. The Veltar were known throughout the galaxy for their lightning-fast reflexes and surgical military strikes. They had never lost a battle, never failed to bring a younger species to heel. The Veltar solution is always the same, called out a delegate from the crystal-based Shard Collective. Overwhelm them with speed and precision. Show them the difference between children playing with toys and adults wielding true weapons. Morrison stood up slowly. The chamber fell quiet as all eyes turned to the human delegation. He was not an imposing figure compared to the towering aliens around him, but something in his calm demeanor made them pause. "Honored Council," Morrison said, his voice steady and clear. "Humanity appreciates the concern of elder species. We are indeed new to the galaxy. Our ships may look crude to your eyes. Our weapons may seem primitive. But we have one thing that seems to be missing from this discussion." He paused, looking around the chamber. "We have the right to exist in this galaxy just like everyone else." The silence stretched on. Then Zethkar spoke, his voice filled with condescension. "Young human rights are earned through strength and wisdom. Your species has neither. You will learn to follow the rules that have kept peace in this galaxy for millennia." "And if we refuse?" Morrison asked. Silthara stepped forward again. "Then you will learn why the Veltar have never been defeated in combat. We do not wage war like barbarians. We make precise strikes that demonstrate the futility of resistance. Your people will surrender quickly once they understand the situation." Morrison looked at her for a long moment. "Commander Silthara, with respect, you don't know humans very well." "We know enough," she replied coldly. "A species that has barely left its home system cannot stand against those who have ruled the stars for thousands of years." The vote was called. Species after species voted to authorize military action against human expansion. The final tally was 847 in favor, with only 3 abstentions. The mysterious Etherians, who rarely spoke, remained silent. 2 small trading species also refused to vote, but they were insignificant. As the session ended, Zethkar approached the human delegation. His scaled face showed barely concealed contempt. "Commander Morrison, the Veltar fleet will arrive at your colony of New Dakota in 72 hours. They will demand the immediate surrender of your forces and the withdrawal of all human presence from contested space. I suggest you advise your superiors to comply." Morrison stood and gathered his papers. Dr. Park and Captain Bell flanked him as they prepared to leave. "Admiral, I'll relay your message to Earth Command." "And their response?" Zethkar pressed. Morrison looked the alien admiral in the eye. "We'll be ready." "Ready?" Silthera laughed, a sound like breaking glass. "Commander, my fleet consists of 30 of the finest ships in the galaxy, crewed by warriors whose reflexes are faster than your primitive nervous systems can even process. Your colony has 6 ships, 6 crewed human vessels against 30 Veltar war machines. What could you possibly be ready for?" Morrison smiled, but it was not a pleasant expression. "You'll find out in 72 hours, Commander." As the humans left the chamber, whispers followed them. The assembled aliens spoke in dozens of languages, but the meaning was the same. The humans were either brave or stupid. Most agreed they were simply stupid. Dr. Park waited until they were in their shuttle before speaking. "Jake, are we really going to fight them?" 30 ships against 6? Morrison activated the communications array. "Lisa, there's something these aliens don't understand about humans. They think this is about military strength and advanced technology." "Isn't it?" Captain Bell asked. Morrison shook his head as he began transmitting their report to Earth Command. "No, Ryan, this is about something much simpler. They want to tell us where we can and cannot live. They want to decide our place in the galaxy for us." He finished the transmission and looked out at the stars. "And humans have never been very good at accepting other people's decisions about our limits." The shuttle turned toward Earth, carrying news that would change the galaxy forever. Behind them, the aliens of the Galactic Council continued their discussions, confident that the human problem would be solved quickly and quietly. They had no idea what was coming. Captain Amy Rodriguez stood on the bridge of the UES Liberty, watching the stars through the main viewport. New Dakota hung below them, a blue and green world that housed 2.3 million human colonists. It was a peaceful place with farms and small cities scattered across 3 continents. In a few hours, it would become a battleground. "Captain, long-range sensors are picking up something," called Lieutenant Ben Hayes from his station. He was young, barely 25, but he had sharp eyes and a good mind for reading sensor data. 30 contacts approaching from the Veltar Confederacy territories. Rodriguez nodded. She was a compact woman with short black hair and steady hands that never shook even in combat. "Time to arrival?" 6 hours, ma'am. Signal the fleet. All ships to battle stations." The human defense fleet was small, 6 ships total. The Liberty, 2 destroyers named Defiance and Courage, 2 frigates called Guardian and Shield, and 1 supply ship that had been hastily converted to carry extra weapons. Against 30 Veltar warships, it looked hopeless. Dr. Kevin Stone looked up from his research station. He was a tall, thin man who studied alien military tactics. "Captain, I've been reviewing everything we know about Veltar combat doctrine. They prefer surgical strikes. Fast, clean, minimal damage. They'll try to disable our ships without destroying the colony." "That's their first mistake," Rodriguez said quietly. Lieutenant Maria Santos, the tactical officer, turned from her console. "Ma'am, the colonists are asking if they should evacuate." Rodriguez shook her head. "Tell them to dig in and prepare for surface defense." "No one's running." The hours passed slowly. The human ships formed a loose formation between the Veltar fleet and New Dakota. On the surface, colonists who had been farmers and teachers and shopkeepers just days before now manned defensive positions. Children were moved to underground shelters, but the adults stayed to fight. Engineer Tony Clark reported from the engine room. "Captain, all systems are running hot. We're pushing everything to maximum capacity. Keep them there, Tony. We're going to need every bit of power we can get." Chief Petty Officer Rachel Kim supervised the damage control teams. She was a small woman with calloused hands and 20 years of experience keeping ships running under impossible conditions. "Damage control teams are ready, Captain. We've got emergency repair kits staged throughout the ship." When the Veltar fleet finally appeared on long-range sensors, they were beautiful. Their bioships gleamed with organic armor that shifted colors in the starlight. Each vessel was a work of art, grown rather than built, with neural interfaces that allowed the crew to react faster than any mechanical system. Fleet Commander Silthara commanded the flagship from her bio-neural throne. Her silver skin gleamed as she interfaced directly with her ship's sensors. Around her, 30 of the finest vessels in the Veltar fleet moved in perfect formation. "Open communications with the human vessels," she ordered. On the Liberty's bridge, Rodriguez watched the alien commander appear on her screen. Silthara was tall and graceful with black eyes that showed no emotion. "Human vessels, this is Fleet Commander Silthara of the Veltar Confederacy. You are ordered to surrender immediately. Power down your weapons and prepare to be boarded. Your colony will be evacuated and relocated to approved human space." Rodriguez looked at the alien commander for a long moment. Around her, the bridge crew waited. In the background, she could hear the quiet sounds of her ship preparing for battle. "Commander Silthara," Rodriguez said finally. "This is Captain Amy Rodriguez of the United Earthship Liberty. I have a response to your demands." Silthara leaned forward slightly, expecting to hear terms of surrender. The humans had to realize how hopeless their situation was. 6 ships against 30 was not a battle, it was a demonstration. "No," Rodriguez said. The word hung in space between the two fleets. On the Veltar flagship, Silthara blinked in surprise. Her tactical computers had run hundreds of scenarios, but simple refusal had not been among them. "Captain Rodriguez, perhaps you do not understand. We have 30 ships to your 6. Our vessels are superior in every way. Our crews are faster and more experienced. This is not a battle you can win." Rodriguez smiled, but it was not a friendly expression. "Commander, you're right about one thing. This isn't a battle we can win, but you're wrong about what that means." She turned to Lieutenant Santos. "Maria, signal the fleet. All ships execute Plan Alpha." "Plan Alpha?" Silthara asked, confused. Her tactical computers had no reference for this term. Rodriguez looked back at the screen. "Plan Alpha is simple, Commander. When you can't win, make sure the other guy doesn't either." The human ships suddenly accelerated. Instead of forming a defensive line or attempting to retreat, they were charging directly at the Veltar fleet. Lieutenant Commander Steve Walsh, commanding the destroyer Defiance, opened communications. "All ships remember the motto, Earth stands behind us, but we stand for Earth, make every shot count." Dr. Stone watched his tactical displays with fascination. "Captain, they're trying to maintain formation. Their computers are designed for precision warfare. They can't adapt to chaos quickly enough." "Then let's give them some chaos," Rodriguez said. "Tony, I need ramming speed." In the engine room, Tony Clark pushed the Liberty's reactors past every safety limit. "You got it, Captain. But we can't maintain this for long." "We won't need long," Rodriguez replied. The Veltar fleet began to spread out, trying to use their superior numbers to surround the charging humans. But Rodriguez had counted on this. As the alien ships moved to flank them, the human formation suddenly split apart. "All ships weapons free," Rodriguez ordered. "Remember, we're not trying to outfight them. We're trying to out-crazy them." The Liberty's main guns opened fire, but not at the enemy ships. Instead, Rodriguez targeted the space between them, filling the area with explosive charges and debris. The Defiance followed suit, using its missiles to create clouds of shrapnel. Silthara watched in growing confusion as the humans seemed to be shooting at empty space. "What are they doing?" Her answer came when the first Veltar ship hit the debris field at high speed. The bio-armor that made them so graceful also made them vulnerable to unexpected obstacles. 3 Veltar vessels were damaged before they could change course. "Impossible," Silthara whispered. "They're using their own weapons to create obstacles. No civilized species fights this way." On the Liberty, Rodriguez watched the tactical display with grim satisfaction. "That's because we're not civilized, Commander. We're survivors." The two fleets crashed together in a chaos of energy weapons and exploding metal. The Veltar ships, designed for elegant warfare, found themselves in a brawl where their advantages meant nothing. The humans fought like cornered animals, using everything from ramming attacks to improvised weapons. Lieutenant Commander Walsh's voice crackled over the communications. "Liberty, this is Defiance. We're taking heavy damage, but we're taking them with us." Rodriguez watched as the destroyer exchanged fire with 2 Veltar cruisers. Walsh's ship was outgunned and outnumbered, but it kept fighting. "Understood, Steve. Give them hell." The battle was far from over, but already the galaxy was learning something new about humans. They didn't fight to win. They fought because they refused to lose. The first minute of the battle changed everything. On the Veltar flagship, Silthara watched her tactical displays with growing horror. Her bio-neural interface processed information faster than any human brain could think. But what she was seeing made no sense. The humans weren't following any known military doctrine. "Tactical report," she ordered, her silver fingers dancing across organic controls. "Commander, we have lost 4 ships in the first 30 seconds, her tactical officer reported. "The humans are using suicide tactics. They are ramming our vessels with their own ships." Silthera's black eyes widened. "Ramming? In space combat? That is primitive madness, but the madness was working." The destroyer Defiance, commanded by Lieutenant Commander Steve Walsh, had taken critical damage from 2 Veltar cruisers. His ship was dying, atmosphere bleeding from dozens of holes, but Walsh wasn't finished. "All hands, this is the captain," Walsh announced over his ship's communications. "We're going down, but we're not going alone. Brace for impact." Chief Petty Officer Rachel Kim, monitoring from the Liberty, watched the Defiance's final moments on her sensors. "Captain Walsh is making a run at their dreadnought." Rodriguez nodded grimly. Walsh was a good man with a wife and 2 kids back on Earth. But he was also a fighter who understood what was at stake. The Defiance, her engines pushed beyond all safety limits by engineer Tony Clark's counterpart on that ship, accelerated directly toward the massive Veltar dreadnought. The alien ship tried to turn away, but its bioneural systems couldn't react fast enough to such an insane maneuver. "Tell my kids I love them," Walsh transmitted. "Ram this bastard for me." The Defiance struck the dreadnought amidships, her nuclear reactor breaching on impact. The explosion lit up space like a new star, taking out both ships and damaging 3 others nearby. On the Liberty, Communications Officer Jack Turner monitored all frequencies. He was broadcasting everything on open channels, sending real-time reports to the colony below and to Earth itself. Unlike other species that kept military operations secret, humans shared everything. "Colony Command, this is Liberty," Turner transmitted. "All civilian craft prepare to join the battle. Repeat, all civilian craft report for duty." Dr. Kevin Stone looked up from his research station, amazed. "Captain, they're actually doing it. Every ship on New Dakota is launching." Rodriguez watched her sensors as dozens of new contacts appeared. Mining ships, cargo haulers, passenger transports, even luxury yachts. None of them were warships, but they were coming anyway. The cargo ship New Hope, commanded by retired Navy veteran Sam Johnson, was loaded with mining explosives. Johnson was 67 years old with gray hair and steady hands that remembered combat from humanity's last civil war. "Liberty, this is New Hope," Johnson transmitted. "I've got a hold full of industrial charges and a score to settle. Where do you need me?" Rodriguez found herself smiling despite the chaos around her. "Sam, pick a target and make it count." The Veltar fleet found itself fighting not just 6 warships, but an entire civilization. Every human with access to a spacecraft joined the battle. They came with mining lasers, cargo rams, and improvised weapons that no military manual had ever considered. Dr. Helen Murphy, monitoring from the colony's surface, recorded everything. She was a scientist, not a soldier, but she understood the historical importance of what was happening. "The Veltar are designed for elegant warfare," she noted in her log. "Precision strikes, minimal casualties, surgical removal of resistance. But humans don't fight elegant wars. We fight desperate ones." On the Veltar flagship, Silthara tried to adapt to chaos that her species had never encountered. "All ships maintain formation. Use your speed advantage. These humans cannot match our reflexes." But the humans weren't trying to match Veltar reflexes. Instead, they were using tactics that made speed irrelevant. Lieutenant Maria Santos, the Liberty's tactical officer, demonstrated this when she coordinated 3 human ships in a maneuver that no sane species would attempt. "Courage and Guardian, prepare for nuclear proximity detonation," Santos ordered. The 2 frigates, already heavily damaged, moved close to a cluster of Veltar vessels. Instead of firing their weapons normally, they overloaded their nuclear reactors and used them as improvised bombs. Silthara watched in disbelief as the humans deliberately destroyed their own ships to damage hers. "They are using their nuclear reactors as weapons. This is insanity." Her tactical officer, a young Veltar named Kethmar, looked up from his station. "Commander, our bioneural interfaces are having difficulty processing their tactics. Our computers are designed for logical warfare. This appears to be random violence." "It's not random," Dr. Stone observed from the Liberty. "It's creative. They're thinking inside a box where warfare has rules. We're fighting outside any box at all." The converted supply ship, now bristling with hastily mounted weapons, took advantage of Veltar confusion to score devastating hits on 2 enemy cruisers. Its captain, Lisa Carter, had been a merchant marine before the war started an hour ago. "Liberty, this is Supply 1, Carter transmitted. "I've never fired a weapon bigger than a hunting rifle, but these alien computers can't figure out what I'm going to do next." "That's because you don't know what you're going to do next either," Rodriguez replied, watching Carter's ship weave through enemy fire with the randomness of pure desperation. The turning point came when Sam Johnson's cargo ship reached the Veltar command vessel. The old veteran had survived 3 decades in space and 2 wars on Earth. He knew how to read a battle, and he could see that the aliens were starting to panic. "This is for every human who ever refused to quit," Johnson transmitted, aiming his ship at the alien flagship. Silthara realized the danger too late. Her ship tried to evade, but the human cargo vessel was already too close. Johnson's ship, loaded with mining explosives, struck the flagship's bioarmor and detonated. The explosion damaged Silthara's command systems and killed half her crew. More importantly, it showed the rest of the Veltar fleet that their supposedly invincible commander could be hurt by a human cargo pilot with a hold full of industrial explosives. "All ships, fall back," Silthara ordered, her voice shaken. "Reform at safe distance." But there was no safe distance from humans who fought like the universe owed them money. Every time the Veltar tried to establish range, another human ship would accelerate toward them with weapons charging and safety systems disabled. Dr. Lisa Park, monitoring the battle from her position in the human diplomatic section, transmitted her observations to Earth Command. "The Veltar are faster and more advanced, but they're programmed for warfare as a precise art. Humans treat warfare as a blunt instrument. When precision meets desperation, desperation wins." By the end of the first minute, 12 Veltar ships were destroyed or disabled. The human fleet was down to 2 operational vessels, but civilian ships were still joining the fight. More importantly, the psychological advantage had shifted. The Veltar had entered the battle confident in their superiority. Now they were learning that humans didn't care about superiority. They cared about surviving, and they were willing to do anything to make that happen. Silthara looked at her damaged bridge and her shaken crew. Her elegant ships were being torn apart by crude human vessels piloted by farmers and merchants who had no business in space combat. "Commander," Kethmar reported, "the humans are not following any recognizable tactical pattern. Our predictive systems cannot process their next moves." Silthara watched another human ship accelerate toward her formation, its hull glowing from reactor overload. "That is because they are not thinking about their next moves. They are simply refusing to die." The first minute was over, but the battle was just beginning, and the Veltar were starting to understand that they had made a terrible mistake in choosing to fight humanity. Captain Amy Rodriguez wiped blood from her forehead where a piece of shrapnel had cut her during the last exchange of fire. The Liberty's bridge was a mess of sparking consoles and emergency lighting, but she was still in command and her ship was still fighting. "Damage report," she called out. Chief Petty Officer Rachel Kim's voice crackled over the communications from somewhere deep in the ship. "Captain, we've lost main power to decks 4 through 7. Hull breaches on multiple levels. But the reactor's still running and we still have weapons." Rodriguez nodded. Around her, the bridge crew worked at damaged stations with the calm efficiency of people who had accepted that they might die, but refused to accept that they would lose. "Maria, what's our tactical situation?" Lieutenant Maria Santos looked up from her console, which was held together with emergency tape and determination. "2 ships left in the main fleet, ma'am. Us and the Guardian, but we've got 17 civilian vessels still operational." Through the main viewport, Rodriguez could see the wreckage of what had been the most one-sided battle in galactic history. Veltar bioships drifted dead in space, their organic armor cracked in bleeding atmosphere. Human ships, crude and ugly by alien standards, continued to move through the debris field. "Signal all ships," Rodriguez ordered. "We're going to try the Pittsburgh maneuver." Communications Officer Jack Turner looked confused. "Ma'am, I don't have that in any tactical database." Rodriguez smiled grimly. "That's because I just made it up. It's named after an old Earth naval battle where a smaller fleet used debris and wreckage as weapons." Dr. Kevin Stone looked up from his research station. "Captain, using debris as improvised weapons? That's not exactly standard military doctrine." "Kevin, when has anything we've done today been standard?" On the surface of New Dakota, Dr. Helen Murphy continued her scientific observations while explosions lit up the sky above her. She was recording everything, knowing that this battle would be studied for generations. The human approach to warfare appears to be based on adaptability rather than superiority. She dictated to her computer. When conventional tactics fail, they invent new ones. When those fail, they invent newer ones. The process appears to be limited only by imagination and available materials. Lieutenant Commander Steve Walsh was dead, along with hundreds of other humans, but his sacrifice had shown the way forward. The Veltar fleet, reduced to 18 operational ships, was trying to regroup at a safe distance. Commander Silthara stood on her damaged bridge, her silver skin pale with shock. Half her fleet was gone, destroyed by a species she had dismissed as primitive. Her bioneural interfaces were overloaded from trying to process combat that followed no logical pattern. "Status report," she ordered. Her tactical officer, Kethmar, struggled with data that made no sense. "Commander, the humans are using debris from destroyed ships as projectile weapons. They are also broadcasting detailed tactical information on all frequencies, including to their civilian population." Broadcasting tactical data to civilians? Silthara was horrified. That violates every principle of military security. But the human approach was working. Every civilian on New Dakota now knew exactly what was happening in the battle above them. More importantly, they were actively participating. Sam Johnson was gone, his cargo ship destroyed in the ramming attack that had crippled the Veltar flagship. But his example had inspired others. The luxury yacht Starlight, owned by businessman Paul Harris, had been modified with mining lasers and was now hunting Veltar scouts. "This is Starlight," Harris transmitted. "I used to take rich folks on pleasure cruises. Now I'm taking target practice on alien warships. Life's funny sometimes." The cargo hauler Big Sky, piloted by former truck driver Mike Chen, had used its massive cargo arms to physically grab a Veltar fighter and crush it. "Liberty, this is Big Sky. Turns out these fancy bioships crumple just like aluminum cans when you squeeze them right." Rodriguez watched the tactical display with amazement. Her people were turning the battle into something unprecedented in galactic history. "Jack, patch me through to all frequencies." "I want everyone to hear this," Turner nodded. "You're broadcasting to the entire star system, Captain." Rodriguez stood up, ignoring the blood still trickling down her face. "This is Captain Amy Rodriguez to all human vessels, all colonists, and any aliens who might be listening. Today the galaxy tried to tell us where we could and could not live. They sent 30 warships to remove us from our home." She paused, looking out at the debris field where human and alien ships drifted together in death. "We had 6 ships. 6 ships against 30. Any reasonable person would have surrendered. Any sane person would have run." On the Veltar flagship, Silthara listened despite herself. "But humans aren't reasonable," Rodriguez continued. "And we're definitely not sane. We're the species that looked at a hostile universe and decided it was our job to make it more hospitable. We're the people who took a planet covered in predators and turned it into a garden." The mining ship Terra Nova, crewed by the Morrison family, was using industrial explosives to clear debris fields that the Veltar were trying to hide behind. Grandmother Morrison, age 72, was manning the weapons console. "We don't fight because we're strong," Rodriguez said. "We fight because we're too stubborn to quit. We don't win because we're superior. We win because losing means giving up, and humans don't know how to do that." Dr. Lisa Park, monitoring from Earth, transmitted her analysis to military commands across human space. The Veltar entered this battle with technological and numerical superiority. But they're discovering that humans don't fight technological wars. We fight psychological ones. The turning point came when the damaged frigate Guardian, barely holding together, coordinated with 6 civilian ships in an attack that no military academy had ever taught. Captain Lisa Carter of the converted supply ship led a formation of mining vessels in a maneuver that used gravitational fields and electromagnetic interference to confuse Veltar sensors. "All ships, follow my lead," Carter transmitted. "We're going to show these aliens what happens when you pick a fight with people who fix broken machines for a living." The civilian fleet, coordinated by farmers and mechanics and shopkeepers, executed a complex attack pattern that the Veltar bioneural interfaces couldn't predict or counter. They weren't trained military pilots, but they understood their ships and they weren't afraid to break them if necessary. Engineer Tony Clark, working in the Liberty's damaged engine room, managed to restore partial power to the main weapons. Captain, I can give you one good shot. After that, we're running on backup power and prayers. Rodriguez looked at the tactical display. The Veltar fleet was down to 15 ships and they were beginning to withdraw. One shot is all we need, Tony. The Liberty's main guns, powered by systems that should have failed hours ago, fired a concentrated burst at the Veltar formation. The blast tore through 2 alien cruisers and damaged a third. Commander Silthera made the decision that would echo through galactic history. All ships retreat. Fall back to Veltar space immediately. Her tactical officer was stunned. Commander, we still outnumber them. Silthara looked at her damaged fleet and her shaken crews. Kethmar, we came here to teach these humans about galactic power. Instead, they have taught us about human determination. Retreat now before they teach us about human vengeance. The Veltar fleet withdrew, leaving 26 ships behind as wreckage. The human defense fleet had been reduced to 2 military vessels and 11 civilian craft, but they had won. Rodriguez sat down in her captain's chair, finally allowing herself to feel the exhaustion. Around her, the bridge crew continued their work with quiet professionalism. Jack, open a channel to New Dakota Command. Channel open, Captain. Rodriguez smiled, thinking of all the people who had said this battle was impossible to win. New Dakota Command, this is the Liberty. The Veltar fleet has withdrawn. New Dakota remains in human hands. The cheers from the planet below could be heard even through the vacuum of space. 6 months after the Battle of New Dakota, the galaxy was a different place. Admiral Zethkar stood before a military tribunal on Hegemony Prime, his scaled hands clasped behind his back as he faced questions about the greatest military disaster in his species' history. The chamber was filled with high-ranking officials from across the Hegemony Alliance, all trying to understand how a minor correction had resulted in the loss of 26 warships. Admiral, the chief prosecutor began, you assured this tribunal that the Veltar fleet would easily handle the human problem. Instead, a fleet of 30 ships was defeated by 6 human vessels and a collection of civilian craft. How do you explain this failure? Zethkar's yellow eyes were tired. He had spent months reviewing the battle records, trying to find a logical explanation for what had happened. Honored tribunal, the humans did not fight according to any known military doctrine. They used tactics that no civilized species would consider, such as suicide attacks, using their own nuclear reactors as weapons, turning civilian populations into combatants, broadcasting military intelligence on open frequencies. Zethkar paused. They fought like cornered animals. The prosecutor leaned forward. And this justifies the loss of an entire fleet? No, Zethkar admitted. Nothing justifies that. But I believe we fundamentally misunderstood what we were dealing with. The humans are not a typical spacefaring species. They are something else. Across the galaxy on the rebuilt Nexus Prime Station, Commander Jake Morrison stood before the Galactic Council once again. But this time the chamber was silent. The same species that had laughed at humanity 6 months ago now watched him with careful attention. Morrison had been promoted to Admiral after the battle. His hair was grayer now, and there were new lines around his eyes, but his voice was as steady as ever. Honored Council, Morrison began, humanity formally requests full membership in the galactic community. The vote was taken immediately. 850 species voted in favor, 0 voted against, 3 abstained, but only because they were too shocked to respond. Dr. Lisa Park, now Earth's chief xenopsychologist, published her research paper 6 weeks after the council vote. Combat effectiveness and species survival strategies became required reading at military academies across the galaxy. Her key finding was simple but terrifying. Humans were the only known species that became more dangerous as their situation became more hopeless. Most species fight to win, Park wrote. Humans fight to survive. When victory becomes impossible, survival becomes the only goal, and humans will do anything to survive. The paper included detailed analysis of the Battle of New Dakota, including tactical recordings that showed human ships using debris, improvised weapons, and suicide attacks to defeat a superior force. Military strategists across the galaxy studied the recordings with fascination and horror. On New Dakota itself, Captain Amy Rodriguez stood before a memorial wall that listed the names of everyone who had died in the battle. The wall was made of metal salvaged from both human and Veltar ships, symbolizing that even in victory, war was a tragedy. Steve Walsh's name was at the top of the list. Below it were the names of Sam Johnson, Paul Harris, and dozens of others who had given their lives to defend their home. Rodriguez placed a small wreath at the base of the memorial. They thought 60 seconds would be enough to defeat us, she said quietly. They were right. 60 seconds was all we needed. The inscription on the memorial had become famous across human space. Here lies proof that determination matters more than technology, and courage counts more than numbers. New Dakota had been transformed from a simple farming colony into a fortress world. The planet now hosted the largest human military base outside of Earth, and its orbital defenses were designed by people who had learned to fight impossible odds. But the real change was in how the galaxy viewed humanity. The crude, primitive species that had been dismissed 6 months ago was now treated with careful respect. Human space was clearly marked on all star charts, and no military force entered it without explicit permission. Captain Lisa Carter, formerly of the converted supply ship, now commanded the new Earth Defense Force training facility on New Dakota. She taught courses with titles like Improvised Space Combat and Civilian Resource Integration. Her classes were attended by officers from dozens of species, all trying to understand how humans had turned a hopeless battle into an impossible victory. The key, Carter told her alien students, is not to think like a military officer. Think like someone who has nothing left to lose but refuses to give up. Anyway, Engineer Tony Clark had been promoted to Chief of Starship Engineering for the entire Earth Defense Force. His modifications to the Liberty's power systems during the battle had become standard upgrades across the human fleet. When asked about his innovations, he simply said, "When you can't have better equipment, you make the equipment you have work better." Communications Officer Jack Turner became the head of Earth's new Galactic Relations Department. His job was to make sure that every species in the galaxy understood exactly what had happened at New Dakota and what it meant for the future. "We're not looking for fights," Turner would tell alien diplomats, "but we're not backing down from them either. Humans have a simple philosophy. Leave us alone and we'll leave you alone. Try to push us around and you'll discover why that's a bad idea." Dr. Helen Murphy's scientific recordings of the battle became the definitive historical record. Her analysis was taught in schools across human space and studied by xenopsychologists throughout the galaxy. The Battle of New Dakota demonstrated that technological superiority means nothing without the will to use it effectively, Murphy concluded. The Veltar had better ships, better weapons, and better training. But they did not have better motivation. The ripple effects of the battle spread across the galaxy. Several species that had been considering military action against human colonies quietly canceled their plans. The Veltar Confederacy entered a period of military reorganization, trying to understand how their perfect combat doctrine had failed so completely. Commander Silthara, her career destroyed by the defeat, retired to a quiet world on the edge of Veltar space. She spent her time writing tactical manuals that included chapters on unpredictable opponents and combat psychology of desperate species. "We prepared for war against a military force," she wrote. "Instead, we fought an entire civilization that refused to accept defeat. No amount of technological superiority can overcome that level of determination." The final change came when Earth announced the construction of its new colony ship, the UES New Horizon. The massive vessel was designed to carry 50,000 colonists to any star system in the galaxy. Its destination was announced in a message broadcast on all galactic frequencies. "The New Horizon will establish humanity's next colony in the Centauri Reach," the announcement stated. "Any species wishing to contest this decision is welcome to try. We recommend studying the Battle of New Dakota first." No one contested the decision. As the New Horizon departed Earth, carrying families who sang lullabies about standing ground and never giving up, a new saying spread through the galaxy's military academies. It appeared in dozens of languages, but the meaning was always the same. Before you pick a fight with humans, ask yourself one question. Are you prepared for them to fight back like the universe owes them money? Dr. Kevin Stone, now Earth's foremost expert on galactic military doctrine, published the final word on the subject. His book, Why Humans Win, became a bestseller across dozens of species. The dedication was simple, to everyone who ever refused to quit when quitting made sense. On a small trading station in the Outer Rim, an alien merchant captain briefed his crew before entering human space. Remember the rules, he told them. Be polite, be respectful, and never ever make them think you're a threat. Humans don't fight like civilized beings. They fight like the universe is trying to kill them, and they're personally offended by the attempt. In the end, that was humanity's greatest victory. Not winning a single battle, but changing how an entire galaxy thought about war, determination, and the power of refusing to give up. The message was clear. Humans were no longer the new species that could be pushed around. They were the species that fought impossible odds and won, and that made all the difference.